Hello and welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 814. You say 814, what podcast is this going to be? Well, I'll tell you. It's a special podcast. We've threatened to do this for years. So just for those of you playing at home, this podcast is complete departure from our normal podcast where Grace and I review news, Paul and I review races. This podcast
There's nothing going on.
Nothing. So I've got Paul with me. I've got Grace with me. I'm not introducing. I'm not playing their bumper music. This is a total casual affair. But I thought it'd be fun for newer listeners just to recap, and for your veterans, you're going to be like, holy crap, I've been listening to those idiots for that long. So TPF started, the website started back in 2005. So we've been podcasting since 2007. So that's 17 years of covering Formula One and 15 years of podcasting, if you can imagine that. I always think it's kind of funny. I go to YouTube, and they're like people that are posting YouTube, and they're podcast experts, and they're going through how to set these things up or what cameras. And it's like, I'm so-and-so, and I'm a podcaster. I've been podcasting for 3 years now, and I'm a podcast expert. Like, 3 years? What's that make us? I mean, that puts us in the geriatric ward of podcasters, I think, at this point. It's been a long time we've been doing this. But in all that time, during podcasts, for one reason or another, we sometimes veer off course occasionally and discuss.
That never happens. What are you talking about?
Should I say air quotes? Occasionally, we veer off track. I don't know. We get to go.
Shiny object.
Exactly. Squirrel. And so we discussed food and or wine or whatever. And all of our podcasts used to start with me saying, Grace, what are you imbibing? And Grace always, perfectly on cue, would always have a really nice drink, just like
and was imbibing till
and
we
she
had
was
the meeting.
Imbibing. Yes, yeah, until she reached step 6, which said, "No, you got to stop all that in your 12-step help program, Grace." And so anyway, we started discussing food and all that, and then we'd always joke about doing a wine and cheese podcast that had nothing to do with F1, right? So basically, this means it's a podcast about other things apart from F1. And so, as some of you may or may not know, Paul Charles is quite the chef in his own right and loves food. Self-proclaimed. So he got a lot of high ideas, so-called. And so he really likes food. He's a foodie and wine and drink and he's British. He knows the finer things in life. He's been there. I mean, you've been with a lady. It's a Monty Python reference, Grace. It's not a...
I understand that. I just think out of context, that seems...
Yeah, it's a Monty Python skit.
It sounds out of context.
It does. Not as good as a wink to a blind bat. And so anyway, our listeners, and longstanding listeners, mind you, would tell us that they want to hear us do that podcast. Well,
yeah, they're going to change their minds probably by...
They're going to change their mind real quick.
Saying,
15 years to listen to that podcast, but that's it. I didn't want to know that about them.
Yeah.
So there was a challenge because while some listeners enjoyed our preambles before the show and stuff like that, each other, I'd always get comments in the reviews or emails that said they skipped the first 10 minutes because they don't give a damn about us or they just wanted to hear F1 related news and commentary, right? And so that's fine. But I figure we've moved away from the preamble and just sort of focused on the news and race views. But this year has seen a rise in listeners thanks to Drive to Survive, and that's great. But most of them don't understand like a lot of our inside jokes like Magic 8 Ball and those sort of things. And we've been around that long that we have inside jokes. So after 17 years, I think we've reached a place in our podcasting history where I'm really not concerned if some listeners don't care about us or just want to hear the news. This podcast is for the listeners who do care, and the podcast is for them. For all of you out there that tuned in this week to hear F1 news and all that good stuff, this is not the podcast for you. This is a podcast we're going to talk about just the three of us, and I got some fun questions. And
as shallow as we appear to be, we actually had more depth than people perceive.
Yes.
It's not just all about Ocon.
That's right. That's right. Now, having said all that, we're going to start off this podcast. I said that we're not going to be talking about F1.
It's false. No way. Not this time. We created it.
See?
Not this time.
Not
No,
this time.
Not this time.
That's right. It's totally false. There was such big news in Formula One. Paul tweeted out earlier last week, and he said, how the heck are we going to have a wine and cheese podcast with all of this stuff going on, right? And he's right. So we are going to talk about it before we jump into the wine and cheese portion of the podcast. So first up, Ferrari announced this past week that Fred Vasseur is taking Matteo Binotto's place as the Ferrari team boss. Any thoughts on that? No, I didn't think he did. All right, let's move on. You guys are gonna, oh man, being the Ferrari fan I am, you guys are gonna hang this over. You guys are gonna end up beating me over the head with this whole thing if it doesn't.
No, they'll beat you over your own head with it, really. As Grace was saying, and getting rid of Binotto seemed like a very silly idea at the trajectory the Ferrari team were going. They didn't maybe get it perfect, but man, their signs were a lot more positive than negative. And to just rip the paper up, which we know they've done several times, and every time that takes you
Works.
5 steps back, and right on the cusp of being right there with Red Bull. There you go.
I know. And Grace, it just seems like they announced that, this is Charles Leclerc's old JV team coach, right?
Yeah,
and he's
right.
taken over the boss of the premier team. And this tells us it tells me anyway, or it suggests that Charles has a lot of pull at Ferrari, enough to see the back of Binotto and hire the guy like Fred, right? And I hope I'm wrong, Grace, but I don't know. People have asked me do you think that's the right move? And I don't know.
I think first of all, right, as Paul said, right, in this sport, you can't, maybe in anything, right, but you really can't ever be that short-sighted, right? Formula One is years out, right? 5 years out, right? You can't just think this moment, here's where we're at, but that's never stopped Ferrari. But
True.
Maybe it's also, I think that so one scenario is Charles Leclerc came in and was like, listen, you jerk faces, here's what we're doing. Binotto, you're out of here. Whoever our technical director, you're out of here, right? That's one way. I don't think that's what happened, though. It probably was somebody was like, we need Charles to be more successful. What would make Charles happy? Oh, getting rid of Binotto, and nobody asked him.
Yeah,
or, I think we've all been in that situation where somebody asks you like, oh, just tell me when you think this is going to be done, back of the envelope. And before you know it, your back of the envelope has now gone all the way up to management. And you're like, you asked for an estimate, right? You told me back of the envelope, and now that's the truth.
Yeah, right.
I
right.
just
well,
don't-
I think they went in and just asked him, Charles, so, sorry about this year, but, we're going to, do you want to continue next year with Mattia? And he was like, I think that's kind of how that all went.
Maybe.
I think they just had some confrontations during the year.
Yeah, I think so too.
And
the wagging finger, remember that?
Yeah,
one?
there were certainly some weaknesses with Binotto. Certainly how he wouldn't really change things when things were starting to go wrong, when strategy was going wrong, when this was going wrong. He always seemed to, he always wanted to be a supporter of his people, but he didn't actually show that he was actually going to change anything. Oh no, we've got all the right people in the right place. That's if you're making bad decisions or things are going wrong, you have to try and fix those things, whether it's a big change or a small change.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not even thinking Vasseur may be a long-term positive,
I hope so.
influence, but Ferrari was so close in the short term. I'm not sure it was the right decision for next year.
I don't know. When you make those changes at that level, it can be disruptive, and it takes time.
Well, it is.
There's a ramp-up period, right,
Sure.
Paul? There's a ramp-up period. There's no doubt that just to draw a parallel to your world, even if the Aston Martin's performance on track was the same on the day that your team got together versus the way that your team executes now. So take, a car, let's say on balance is performing roughly around the same, but the team is gelling in a much, much greater way than it ever was, day one when you're all new and Ian's new. And it's the same with Fred Vasseur. Of course, Ferrari's chock-a-block full of a lot of smart people, and they're going to continue to do things. But Fred may come in and want some relatively decent sized changes that changes the trajectory of the car or the innovation or whatever. Who knows? But yeah, it's tough. But
Yeah.
He wasn't the only one. As much as Grace was sitting at home guff-hawing and knee slapping at my challenges of being a Ferrari fan,
Then all
her
of a
own
sudden,
team, yes, it was like, uh-oh, what is this? This just in, Andreas Seidel leaves McLaren. Yes. So now we've got McLaren. They've
surprise.
parted ways with Andreas Seidel, which is a stunner for me because I think he was doing a wonderful job. He's moving now over to Sauber, who is waiting for Audi to show up. And
Right.
this puts Andreas Seidel as the head team boss of the Audi works team, which is not a bad gig if you can get it.
yeah.
This and Paul's worked with Audi. He knows the breadth and scope of Audi in general.
Absolutely.
This leaves former Ferrari man and current McLaren head of race operations, Andrea Stella, and very smart guy, but this is a major role from race engineer. He was race engineer at Ferrari, at McLaren, stepping up to this team boss. What kind of challenge is that going to be for him, Paul?
Yeah. I'm not sure he's of the same ilk as Seidel for sure.
That's
He's
what I
been
was
up and
concerned
down,
about.
in and out a little bit.
Yep.
I think he's going to need more support than Seidel did. I think Seidel was a one-man leader, and I think he did a great job. And why did Zach let him go? I don't think it's because he thought it was the best move for McLaren for next year. I think, with the rule changes and where Seidel was ultimately going, for him to be in your team for those 2 years leading up to when a major competitor is going to come back. I mean, Alfa Romeo Sauber is going to be very different from Audi Sauber in competitiveness on the grid. And they are going to be a ripe contestant for McLaren and above once they get into gear. So I think it was more well, if you don't want to be here, I'm not going to keep you here.
Right.
And if I do keep you here, I can't even use your full capacity because I can't really have you entrenched in everything that McLaren are doing because you're going to be my competitor in 2 years.
Yeah.
So he kind of didn't really have a choice. I'm sure he didn't want to have that choice to make because I think it was a great lineup and I think his personality was great for McLaren. But I think ultimately Seidel's dream job of running Audi in Formula One was too big a draw, and Zach was like, well, we better cut off now for the betterment of everybody. More us than them. He's not doing it to give Seidel the best life he's ever become accustomed to. That's not what he's there for, right? He's going to take care of that himself. He's still looking after McLaren by letting a very good guy go, but not holding that guy in within the team and causing distractions within the team, knowing he's got a foot out the door already anyway.
But it's definitely, Grace, really, as Paul said, he's just basically at this point protecting McLaren's intellectual property.
Right. And I mean, I agree with Paul, right? He didn't have a choice. I mean, otherwise it's going to be right. Again, the boyfriend who doesn't want to break up with you is he's just such a terrible boyfriend that finally you go, enough, get out. Right.
We're breaking up. No, we're not.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a submarine. But I hope that they give Andreas Seidel a send-off video like they did for Carlos Sainz, just so we can see if Zach's German is as bad as his Italian was.
I bet it is.
He's a Yankee after all.
I know, but that was really bad.
You should hear my German.
Wow. I don't know, but I mean, clearly he had people like coaching him up, right?
Yeah, it's usually very angry German though. For some
yes, right.
Nine, Nick Schießen. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Where's Mark Hallam when I need him?
Really?
Yeah, so there's that. And then finally, the last bit of news is he's coming home. He's coming back home. He was at Ferrari. Ferrari didn't want him anymore. He was over at Haas. Haas thought he was too expensive. And now Mick Schumacher has landed a job as a reserve driver at Mercedes. And they had the grip and grin photo with him and Toto, and he signed the deal. So it's
which is a good choice, I think.
It's a great choice because Paul, let's be honest, if he could get in and go all in on this program and be quick and do testing and not damage the car, the front wings and stuff, if he could go all in, you could see this evolution when Lewis eventually, decides to retire or whatever, and if George is their guy, there's an open spot, and Mick,
Yeah.
he would want it.
Yeah, it gives him a chance to earn a position. I'm not convinced he's got that level of skill, but
right.
it is going to give him time to hone it, and because I think there's probably other options. If you had a clean slate to pick, you wouldn't pick Mick Schumacher to partner George. But on Mick's side, it's a fantastic opportunity to prove that maybe you have more to offer than it was apparent running at Haas, which I feel like would be kind of difficult anyway. That was a difficult situation to really show your best or really show exactly who you were as a driver.
Well, look at Kevin, what he's been able to do there, and it's tough.
Yeah. It is tough. Yeah, I mean they're running on old parts. I mean it's not conducive for excelling. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, right. So there you have it.
Yeah, and I think he's got enough knowledge in Formula One that is actually going to be helpful for Mercedes too.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, I guess maybe maybe ultimately what it does do, Grace, is just improves his odds at least staying in F1. Right? Might not be Mercedes. Bless you.
Thanks.
It may not be at Mercedes, but at least it keeps him in the mix for other teams,
Right. And he's spending time at Mercedes, which is worth something.
Right.
And that's going to be value to a secondary team, even if supported by Mercedes, like Williams or someone like that, if Williams still ends up being supported by Mercedes, which I feel like it won't in the near future. But it may give him a placement point to come back into Formula One using all that knowledge, which a team would be very happy to receive,
Right. Yep. Good point. All right. Shall we start the Wine and Cheese podcast?
Oh, sure.
Let's do it. I am excited. Toto's excited. He's been waiting for this. Cheers. Here we go. Cheers. Here's to 15 years of podcasting.
There you go. Cheers, everybody.
Yeah. Drink up. Okay.
All right.
For all you F1 guys and gals that were tuned in to listen to F1, we're done with F1 for this podcast. That's it. From here on out, Grace, if I had hair, I'd let it down. Grace can let her hair down. We're going to chat.
There's a lot of people that's like first time, never again.
How many people tune in
first time
they ever heard this podcast and go, well, hell, they don't even talk about F1. Just for those of you that are those people, just realize all the other podcasts are all F1. This is the only one we've ever done that's not about podcasting. So
that's because Todd makes us. I think that's where this comes from, right? I think Paul and I left
He
our
reins
own
us in.
devices, right? Would have spent many podcasts, especially together, out in the wilderness discussing things. But Todd's always like,
especially after boring Bahrain or something,
Yeah, right.
What else are we going to talk about this race? Really?
Maybe we would have been a much more successful F1 podcast had I just not talked about F1 and talked about whatever. So we'll find out. We'll find out on the downloads of this episode. We'll find out pretty quick. Everybody's like, oh.
Problem is once they download it, they can't like erase it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
They have to download it till they find out they hate it.
Well, the download, but the impressions number will be different. How many people listen and for how long they listen,
That's true. The emojis are going to be very...
We'll see that YouTube bump. It'll be like this, and then it'll just, the bar will get straight.
Flatline. It'll totally flatline, Grace.
I listen, Mick Schumacher, flatline.
Yeah, flatline.
It's the holiday time.
It is the
to mix
holiday
it up,
time.
Listen to different points of view about different things.
It is.
And I don't think we should have to change our schedule because the teams can't get it together. Like this is like second silly season. Get it together, people. This is our time, not your time.
Your time is summer when you do the silly season thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have it together.
This is the silly walk season.
So for this, in the spirit of getting to know us, because there's a lot of people who have been listening to us for a long time, and when you listen to us for a long time, different opinions or views on different things that happen, you get a little bit of sense of who we are. But in the spirit of getting to know us better, because this podcast was always designed to be like friends sitting in a pub at a table, having a beer, talking about F1. So there's a lot of getting to know those people as friends. So in that spirit, I thought we'd start at the top and begin with our personality types and then getting into some fun questions that might reveal a little bit about each of us. And then again, it might not, and that's the beauty of live entertainment. What do they say? Never work with animals, children, or the TPF crew, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, I know you got these personality things that we did today, and I don't know much about them, but I'd rather spirit animals That's really where I live. In the
Spirit animal?
world.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Let's not share your personality type then.
No, it's fine.
I've read your personality type. It's kind
It's
of a
horrific.
serial killer type personality type.
It is
You know, if
most
I'm
likely
honest.
to. Yes.
Least
Mhm.
likely to.
I,
Yeah. So who's your spirit animal, Paul?
I don't even know.
So, all right, personality types. I will
I think
tell
someone
you.
should give you your spirit animal rather than anyway, because it's what you project out rather than you feel inside.
Oh, well, then you're a honey
Because
badger.
I think one of the questions you got later is like about what do people misinterpret about you? You know, that would be your spirit animal. What they interpret about you rather than what I try to protect.
Well, I think Grace logically has to be a cat, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her Patronus, isn't it?
Hmm. Well, she has cats. I don't know if that's
Well, I am very food motivated. I mean, I do tell that story that somebody once said, you know, the only reason cats like you is because you feed them, and I'm like, well, that's the
yeah,
only
but they're
reason I like
persnickety,
people.
right? Cats are persnickety about food. Like,
Yeah, you know, unlike a dog, right? That's the
right.
stereotype. Like,
Dogs
the
are
dog would-
motivated by food. Anything that they can eat, basically.
Yeah.
Is
But if a
they're gonna
cat
run
likes
for
it, who, buddy, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. Okay. All right,
I'd
there
say
you
a
go.
fox. I like the red panda though a great deal. There's nothing about my personality, but I do enjoy a red panda.
Holy crap, that came out of right field. Wow. A red panda. Nice.
Yeah.
I just
My
think I
favorite
have
animal.
to. I have that is they're adorable.
They are.
I think that I do have to share the story about James Allison where his wife, his now deceased wife, told him that blobfish was his spirit animal. And then
Oh.
he shared that, and when, you know, because Mercedes does all those little like
Yeah.
videos, and I thought it was funny because I think they told him to stop saying like he had some like in other words, or he like kept starting the question, then they corrected him for like always having this like statement that he made before he started a question,
Mhm.
and then he was like, well, you know, my wife said I really don't have a personality and that my spirit animal would be a blobfish. And he said it so lovingly, like he didn't, I mean, he's an engineer, right? Like, so he didn't really say it like, oh, she said, he just, you know, very deadpan kind of said, she said my spirit animal was a blobfish. Because we immediately looked up to see, like, are they divorced? Like, that seems like a weird thing to say to your spouse, but
Yeah.
no, I can't really top blobfish. That was by far the
No,
best.
that's a
spirit
good
animal.
one.
Yeah. What you thinking, honey? Nothing.
Nothing. I mean,
I don't
again, it's
know.
like did you see the Toto Susie Wolf video where he says the relationship is intact, which I also thought was funny.
Yikes.
Yikes.
A
Wow.
vote of no confidence. I know what happened in Star Wars when they did that.
What,
I
she
know.
didn't redo the contract again, or what?
I don't know. It was just great that she was like
Wow.
intact. That's the best you got. He's like, oh,
How
that means we're
lovely.
good. That's a good thing. I was
Yeah.
like, oh boy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Intact.
Ooh,
The wire fence outside is still working. We're intact.
that's
we're
right.
intact.
She can't escape.
That's
Yeah.
right. We're good.
That's crazy. Oh, I don't know about spirit now. My Myers-Briggs is ISTP, though. I will share that. So, that's
And what did you say mine was? Mine's what?
oh, good.
Weren't you
grief,
supposed to
Paul.
write down your own?
No,
I
I
have a
don't
hard
know.
time.
Was I?
You were what, INFP?
Yes, that sounds right. INFP. Yes, whatever
Yes.
that means. That's what I am.
Well, for those out there that are Myers-Briggs, advocates, they'll know what those personalities. What was yours, Grace?
I'm an ENFJ.
That's right. You're the extrovert version of my wife, who's an INFJ. Yes.
Yes. But I
Yeah.
work with a lot of ISTJs.
Yeah.
But
But here's the thing. So, would you, listeners, would you have guessed that Paul and I are introverts in the personality type and that Grace is an extrovert?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
So,
most people that meet me, I wouldn't say would say I'm an introvert.
well, no. And that's
I
the thing.
understand that. Yeah.
But I think the
know.
other thing too is that working with a lot of introverts, again, I work with a lot of statisticians, economists, that type of personality that tend to be, again, like that's the joke with economists is like who the extrovert economist, oh, he's looking at your shoes instead of his, right? So they always tell me like, wow, Grace, you're really extroverted. And then I hang out with like actual extroverts and I'm like, yo, you people are too much.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think it is
Down
all,
there.
it is all
Curly.
relative,
Yeah.
right? Like
It
real
is.
extroverts are just like, I'm like, I need like 7 hours of a nap now, please. This is too much.
Yeah.
So
It
Yes.
is. But Paul, we've known each other quite a while, and I agree. And I mean, I do lots of presentations to lots and lots of people, and I
Right.
can out extrovert your staunchest extrovert, but it's not where I gain my energy from.
But I think that's
it's in solitude, and I like my downtime, and that's where I recharge, if you will.
But I think what people don't understand is introverts make the best presenters because they don't want this, right? And so they've thought, they've planned, they've made the slides, they've practiced, because they don't want this. Extroverts are the ones that roll in with no, agenda. We made our slides 10 minutes before we were presenting them. We're just going to ramble our way through it.
Right. Free throw jazz, this baby. Yeah.
Right. So I think a lot of people think, oh, introverts, you're actually extroverts. And it's because you're really good at extroverting because you don't actually enjoy extroverting.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So, all right. So the first wine and cheese question, here it comes. Are you ready? If you could only eat one kind of cheese for the rest of your life, what would it be? Like every time you got a cheese board, that's the cheese that's on it. What would it be? Paul, we'll start with you.
Well, I
Don't
thought
say
about
Manchego.
Please say Manchego. He hates it.
If you say Manchego, I may have to cut you.
No, I like Manchego, but that would not be my only cheese for the rest of my life.
And I thought about it. I mean, obviously, I've eaten a lot of cheese. I've been eating a lot of French cheese, like raclette and that kind of stuff. That's fantastic.
I don't think
but
I've
you
ever
could
had
not eat that every day, right?
Oh, right.
Right.
I mean, that is special. Like the best cheeses in the world are things that you are not going to put in a dip and stick your tortillas in, right?
Yeah.
It's something you just need a little bit of, and it just has a powerful impact. So I had to say cheddar. And there are so many different types of cheddar, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
And it's like, is it literally one kind of, is it the Irish Spring cheddar, medium sharp, or is it literally any kind of cheddar? Because there's so many different ones, and they're very eatable on consistently, and they go with many different things. You can use them for many different things. So it just seemed the most, it's kind of like peanut butter of cheeses,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
you could use in so many different things and have so many different
It's a good
uses
choice.
for it that I had to go for it. Yeah.
I like it.
I do like the blue cheese though.
See, I
now
agree.
you're in my world. What do you say, Grace?
Cheddar. If I had to eat a
Cheddar?
cheese every day, hands down. Although I really like Kerry Gold has a cheddar that's my favorite, kind of like everyday workhorse kind of cheddar, not like your specially cheese board.
Super sharp and
right.
yeah.
Delicious little cheddar. I do love blue cheese, but I agree with what Paul was saying, that I think that if I could only eat one cheese, I don't know that for the rest of my life I could eat even the best blue cheese every day. That seems like a lot.
Yeah,
Right.
But I got a great story about cheese, because I hated cheese as a child.
Really?
It was the last thing. I remember my brother pinning me down on the kitchen floor and forcing cheese into my mouth, and I'm horrified. My loving brother, right? So I literally hated everything. I hated the smell of it, the taste of it, anything, till I was 16, and we finished high school and we went to the Saint-Tropez, the south of France, and we were kids finally free on our own without our parents, and just walking down the beach, and there's this little food truck kind of thing selling pizza. And I'd never had pizza because I didn't like cheese, right? So up until I was 16, I never had pizza or cheese, at least voluntarily anyway. And I had this mushroom pizza in this little rinky-dink thing in the middle of Saint-Tropez on the beach. And it was like one of the best things I ever ate at that point. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, I think I've got this thing all wrong. And then yada, 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 I've eaten cheese and progressed through many different levels of cheese eating ever since.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a good choice. I had cheddar. Yeah, exactly. Although I was torn, because I do like a brie with a nice cracker and a slice of pear, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of blue cheese. Love blue cheese and Roquefort, But yeah, I think you're right, Paul. I think cheddar would get you the most versatility across the cheddar family if you had to just stick with one. That's
from day to day to day. Yeah. And we have cheese plates all the time. We always have a blue cheese. We have a triple cream brie, never a double cream. That's ridiculous.
Triple cream brie.
Double
Gotta
is
be
pointless.
triple. Double's
You may as well have the little triangle squares.
Yes, it's got to be a triple cream.
It's got to be triple cream, and Yeah,
Yeah,
blue
I agree.
cheese, little camembert, and there's just so many different levels. It's like when I
know.
went to, obviously I lived in wine country for a while, right? And another level of cheese was drinking wine with cheese. That was
Ugh,
I
it
had
didn't
this
get any better.
wine, yes, this wine cheese pairing thing, and they showed how the wine changes the taste of the cheese and
They
vice
do.
versa, and it
Yeah.
blew my mind. Blew my
Yeah.
mind, and ever since then, I'm chasing the dream of the perfect pairing. Quite honestly.
Well, it's always a thing because you pair wine with the food and the main
Yeah.
course and all that stuff. But there is a real magic that happens
Yeah.
when you pair with the right cheese, because the wine and cheese can or won't, but if it's done right, it's just
Yeah.
perfection.
And why? Why? They're
I don't
two
know. I don't know
completely
why.
different spectrums from
I
food
know.
groups, right?
Yeah.
But why does those two together just?
Grace is going to blame the tannins, I think. She's going to say it's the tannins. So there you go. It's a good point. All right. So Grace, how would your parents describe what you do?
That's great.
That's a good question.
My parents know what I do. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think because most people, and I've certainly told this story before, like when people say, because I don't really have a job that is like a one word, like teacher, doctor, race car driver. Like I don't have like a one word. So the closest word to kind of what I do that people know is statistics. So that's probably what they would say, because that's what I tell most people, but that's not really what I do. And I always joke that, like, if I say to somebody, oh, I do statistics, and they go, oh, me too, I now back away from that because I really don't.
Yeah.
It's just kind of it's just kind of the closest realm to where I live. So that's probably what they would say.
Yeah. Paul, what about you?
Well, the weird thing is my parents know exactly what I did because they did it themselves.
Yeah, right.
Right. So yeah. So yeah, it's always fun having those conversations, actually, because my dad obviously was the team manager of a racing team and everything, and honestly, that wasn't something I ever wanted to do. I just wanted to be a race car driver.
Yeah.
But just things kind of evolved, right? And he ended up taking on management roles and different things, and ended up where I am, fantastically where I am today. So it's fun to go back and talk to my dad about what I'm doing versus the old way he used to do it, and there's some things that can be conveyed and some things that are completely different nowadays, obviously. And even my mum, she was there, she was one of the ladies doing the timing on the stands during the 24 hours, and she was at the races and helping out, so she understands all the background on it. So yeah, they kind of know exactly what I do. I think they're pretty happy that I'm doing what I'm doing, not because of what it is, but they know it's just something I just love doing, and they understand the passion that I've had for it ever since I was a kid. So
I
think my dad would also say, I don't know, but she's not in my basement. Right? Like she's not living on my dime. I hope it works for her.
Yeah, here's your $20, dear. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Because I laughed that, like my dad tried to do the like manly, like, oh, to flip, like, oh, she's your problem now. I'm like, I haven't lived in your house for 20 years. What do you mean? I'm his problem now. When was the last time I was your problem? When I was 16? I think I'm still your problem as your child, but
So how about you, child?
My dad passed several years ago. So my mom, if you asked her, she would probably say something like, well, he works for a European company in the technology industry. She didn't have a clue.
So she wouldn't say you're a famous podcaster?
No, hell no.
Does she listen to the show?
No. And nobody in my family listens to my show. And so, no, my own daughters can't explain. Even my wife, if you ask her, that kind of what I do is, a bit strange and hard to describe.
You're a people
and
person,
I'm like Grace. It's not, my title's like this long because you can't really get it into a single word, and people ask you, say, what do you do? And you so you say the title, and they're like, when you say what your title is, and they look even more confused.
Right.
Maybe I need a new title.
What is that? I think what you need to do, Todd, is what I do, is start buying your family Parc Fermé swag for anniversaries and Christmas. That's how you get them on to listening, right?
Yeah. Well, and if they're not going to listen, the least they could do is advertise for me.
That's what I'm saying. Like, here, everybody for Christmas.
Parc Fermé credit card. Every time they buy something in the store, they're like,
Yeah.
what the hell's this?
See? What's a Parc Fermé credit card?
Might make them curious eventually.
Yeah, right, right. All right. Let's see. Which type are you? Let's start with Grace. So if you go to a new location that you've not been, and I'm guessing, but say like Kuala Lumpur or Singapore, Buenos Aires or Tokyo, do you dive instantly right into their culture, their food menu, and go all in on their sort of food that they on a daily basis sort of eat? Or do you sort of try to seek out a restaurant that makes something that you're familiar with? Like, for example, would Paul instantly seek out a curry in a place like when he went to Prague, or would we just dive into the Prague, cafe and eat, Prague food that people from Prague eat mainly?
Prague food.
Prague food. It's Prague food. Whatever Prague food is, I've heard it's really good, to be honest with you. So,
Prague pie,
Prague pie.
Prague and chips.
Oh my gosh. So as somebody who I have joked, I mean, this is true. If we decide to go somewhere, I plan where we're going to eat. And then whatever we do is just because it happens to be near where we're eating. So like we went to Chicago, I was like, we're eating here for supper, we're eating here for dinner. This is where we're going to do lunch over here. And then I had to like find museums or parks or whatever that were nearby.
It's very organized.
Because eating is the most important thing, right? So I had to figure out how to like fill the time in between lunch and dinner with something so that we could make our dinner reservation. So, most people plan like, oh, I really want to see this museum, or I always want to see this artwork, or I always wanted to go whatever, do this thing. And then they're like, oh, where are we going to eat? I'm the opposite. Where we eat, most important. Everything else is the filler. So based on that, absolutely. I would have done so much food research before we ever got there. I would have figured out what the Prague food is, and that's what we would be eating. But that doesn't, I guess living in the United States, living in DC, there's all kinds of food that's good, even though I don't know that's American food. So I don't think you should limit yourself just eating Prague food, but eat whatever's good and give it a whirl. But I would have already done that research. I would have had every meal planned out.
Yeah. So Paul, what about you?
Yeah, I know you always bring up the curry thing because when we're in Austin, I was like, let's go eat curry, right?
Yeah.
I just fancied curry that night.
I know you
do.
say,
and
you're British. You're required by law to like a curry.
But the reason was, and it wasn't because I just need to eat a curry. It's because Austin is a big food town, and they've got good versions of all kinds of different food, ethnicities or whatever you want to call it. So I was like, well, I fancy a curry. Why not try and go eat it here? Because they've got to have some good curry in Austin or whatever. But we were wrong. But it's like you brisket or you don't eat brisket there, basically.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of like Grace, and I don't know if there's a question later on to find out where Grace found her craving for food love, or the drive to try everything. But I'm usually the kind of the go-to person to say, okay, where are we eating tonight, Paul? Even when the guys were racing in Dubai this year, I wasn't there, but I was giving them the places they were going to go eat, because I love doing the research and then try and find, something good. I mean, a lot of times, we're on the road in IMSA going around the US. There's just so many different stuff you can find from different town to town to town, to city to city, right? So, sometimes we do a lot of sushi hunting as well, for that matter, But I'd always definitely, if you're in Miami, you go find a Cuban place, wherever you can find some kind of big culture, then I'd absolutely seek that out in the US or elsewhere.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I was in Spa this year, and trying to find Belgian food was kind of tough because it's not a big expanse of
a lot of stews,
a lot of mussels and things, but there wasn't a lot of depth there, I would say. So it was tough, but absolutely.
See, for me, I
Applebee's, right?
Pretty much. Like if I went to like Shenzhen and China,
now I'm out. First time, last time.
I wouldn't just fly into Shenzhen and then go out and eat dinner and say, okay, well, what's on there? Say, well, like here's pangolin and some
shark fin.
I don't want to go on the pangolin cart. I don't know. Because I don't want to just dive in and then spend the next 2 days bent over a toilet because I ate something that is completely foreign to my stomach and my stomach revolts, So I'm more apt to like ease into it, start with something I know that's relatively banal and then kind of work
rice.
into it. Yeah, you start into penguin fried rice or something. No,
I mean, you got to do your research, as Grace says. You got to look.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the beautiful thing of Yelp and all these kind of things is you look at all the restaurants and you see the reviews and you see, okay, is that something that's within my realm? I'm not going to go eat shark fin soup either, right? But
yeah, that would not be good.
Yeah, there's a lot of cultures I still haven't tried down there. I definitely want to go to. I want to do the South America big time.
And then you got to do the Ring of Fire.
Yeah,
You got to go to Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur. Eventually you end up in Sydney getting drunk, but you start that Ring of Fire
where every
tour.
story ends, really. Yeah,
yeah, pretty much. Every story ends up drunk in Sydney.
Well, eventually. It was pretty funny. I was at my first like in-person conference, and it was time to like figure out where we were going for lunch, and they all looked at me and were like, "Grace, where are we going?" I'm like, "I don't know." Apparently during the pandemic, I completely forgot that my job was to lead my people to where we were eating lunch, and I was completely like, "I don't know this. When was the last time I was in this area? 3 years ago. Everything has changed." So, yeah,
so where'd you
I
end
get
up?
that.
McDonald's?
The Scottish food, yeah.
No, I mean, we were in downtown DC, so we went to the Unconventional Diner and Shop. But anyway, it was just more the idea that usually it's like, well, Tuesday, and then I just tell people, well, here's where I'm eating. If you'd like to join me, come along. But that's where I'm eating, So usually it's kind of like Wednesday, I'll be eating here. Would you like to join me? I had no list. I was not prepared. So
yeah. See, I'm jealous of both you guys because you both got massive food cultures where you live.
Yeah.
I mean, DC, that makes sense. St. Louis doesn't make any sense at all, but it's brilliant.
It is.
I mean, when I lived there, just the diversity and the quality of it doesn't make any sense why it's there, but it is there.
It is.
So anyone that goes to St. Louis, don't think of the shootings, but look into the food culture and entertainment culture because it's pretty deep.
That's just me out here, and Jeff.
All the shootings
animals.
in DC. Maybe there's some kind of thing that goes together here.
More shootings, better food.
Lots of shootings and a great food culture in both your cities.
I think it's a direct causal effect, cause and effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Work on that. Ring out the stats on that, Grace.
Definite causation, I'm sure.
Yeah, total causation. Let's see. All right, Paul, what's your favorite holiday movie, and what does that say about you?
Well, it's probably Love Actually.
Okay.
And what does it say about me? I'm emotional. I like to cry.
Okay.
I like to cry.
There you go.
It gets me going. There's you know what it is about that movie is there's diversity because there's so many different storylines going on, like a Guy Ritchie movie, which I love also, right?
Yeah.
I like because I think it's maybe I need lots of things going on at the same time to keep me interested, right? And there's lots of things going, and there's a little bit of nudity, so that's all.
So is that the one with Bill Nighy in it?
Yeah.
Oh, I do like a good Bill Nighy movie.
Yeah. It's there's lots of different stories, and all of them are good stories, I feel. So, and it's a little emotional, which is what you want at Christmas. But
sure.
There's so many bad Christmas movies. It's insane.
Oh well, wait till I get to mine. Grace, what's your favorite holiday movie?
Hand down is Elf. I love that movie.
Elf. You cotton-headed ninny muggins.
Exactly. There's so many one-liners. I remember when my nieces were, like 5 or 6, and I convinced them that every time somebody called at Christmas to go, this is Buddy the Elf, what's your favorite color? Which was the best.
Yeah.
Because then, of course, the person on the other end of the phone either is like, oh, yeah, and totally gets it, or is like, what?
That's so funny.
So, yeah. Oh, if I could watch that year-round.
Yeah, it's a great one. Love that
movie.
One. Christmas Vacation, of course, A Christmas Story, which is great. Those are classic.
Yeah.
I would say my favorite, though, It's a Wonderful Life. It's still my favorite.
The classic. I haven't seen that in forever.
Classic. I watch it every year.
Once again, that's an emotional movie. Do you cry, Todd?
I do get misty-eyed at the end.
When the angel gets its wings?
Yeah. And the other tie-in that most people don't know is that I'm related to Zuzu in that movie. The little girl, Zuzu's Petals.
Really?
Yeah, she's a cousin. Mhm.
Wow. How about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I'm related. And most people don't know that. So, maybe that's it,
Yeah.
because I know her history and my mom, and they were cousins and spent time together when they were young,
Yeah.
That's cool.
small girls. Yeah.
Did you hear
Yeah.
stories of the movie? Was Jimmy
Uh,
Stewart as angry and mean as we heard?
no, but the funny thing is that Zuzu herself, the actress that Carolyn Grimes, the actress that played that, didn't even watch that movie until like sometime in the 80s. She'd never even watched it. So, who knew?
I will.
Amazing.
And it's also my mother's favorite movie, except
Is
the
it?
scene where, because Jimmy Stewart didn't marry his wife, she became the bookish librarian who had no life of her own, and oh my God, she was never fulfilled because she never had children. Like, I just go on some long sociological rant about how, of course, because she didn't have a man in her life, what was her destiny? My mom's like, can't you just watch the movie? I'm like,
Yeah.
well, clearly I can't. You guys have known me my whole life.
Didn't have
Yeah.
the man. There was only one man.
There's only one man, and you
Yeah.
know
I
who
don't-
that was, right?
Sit down.
Sit down. What do we?
If you're going to help a man, you want to know something about him, don't you?
Well, naturally, of course.
Well, keep your eyes open.
See, there you go.
Well, I also
Clarence.
think that
Clarence.
the notion of, oh, I'll just be fulfilled with that one man. Please. I was fulfilled with or without that one man.
Why don't you go out there and tell
Well,
Flip to piss off?
He knows he married me. He's well aware of my opinion.
You're
not-
not going
it's
to make
not
me
like-
happy.
Like Flip.
I
like
make
Flip,
me
like,
happy.
I'm made whole because Flip's in my life. I need
Like-
Flip like another hole in the head.
Like,
that bastard
it's
could pack
not-
his stuff and move tomorrow, and I couldn't care less.
All right, so there's something maybe in between those two extremes. I'm just saying.
Maybe.
We've been married for 10 years. I think he's well aware of my opinion about those kind of things.
Yeah.
So.
Are you
years,
aware
that's
of his
crazy.
opinion?
Yes, he loves Love Actually. I think that's
Does he?
hilarious.
Way
That
to
he
go, Flip.
loves that movie. He's
There
he's
you
the
go.
romantic one. I'm the person that goes, our relationship's intact. He's the one that's like,
Oh, funny.
intact. That's
Yeah.
all you got, right? So
funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I also,
funny.
I also like the musicals. They're good movies. I like musicals. My wife hates them. Every single one that I like, it's Oliver and Half a Sixpence. I'm like,
Have-
know.
have you
More,
seen-
please?
have you seen the comedy Schmigadoon? I think it's on Netflix. But it totally all just makes fun of all these tropes from musicals. Schmigadoon. It was pretty funny.
Okay, check it out.
I
There
like
you go.
Brigadoon.
She'll probably enjoy it and taunt me with it.
Baby.
Yeah, right.
See,
Let's see. Let's see. Oh boy, this is a tough one. Gonna put you to the test.
hmm
All right, talking about Pinot Noir.
Mhm.
Which is it, Paul? Sonoma Pinot or Oregon Pinot?
Sonoma, man. What are you talking
Mm.
about?
Okay.
Is there? I can't even believe it's actually a question that would actually be allowed to be typed out.
Wow.
Grace, Sonoma
Now
Pinot
we
or
found-
Oregon?
Now we found where Paul's first time, last time question is right there.
He didn't just hint at a line in the sand. He trenched a line in the sand, didn't he?
He sure did.
Wow.
I guess I would provide a nuanced answer if it was just like me and Flip Sonoma. I think if there's more people, and I would go with Oregon. I think that has a
Ooh.
a broader appeal to people.
Mm.
I think that a
Interesting.
Sonoma is a bolder. I don't know, and people are watching this. They can't see my hand gestures, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's tough, right? Pinot's a tough one.
it is.
Yeah.
I
You
love
can
Pinot.
you can have some weak, drab Pinot, and you can have some Pinot
Yeah.
knock your socks off. So it's not just about
Yeah.
region; it's about
It is. Yeah.
But I do think an Oregon Pinot, like if somebody said to me, Grace, I can only bring one thing, I'd go with Oregon. I think you have a better shot at guessing.
I agree.
Mm.
If pressed, I would pick Oregon, and the reason is there's a winery out there, Patricia Green, who makes a killer Pinot Noir, and I had that once, and I haven't found another bottle of it, and it is wonderful. But see, I'm a little bit odd on the Pinot because there, like you said, Paul, there's Pinots that are very bright, they're very busy, they really, they hit you. And I like those real earthy, mellow Pinots,
Mm.
the real earthy ones that, aren't all the pizzazz.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Pinot till I went to the Patson Hall place,
Mm.
which
I
I
was
told
gonna
you guys about, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this is what it can be. That's
Yeah, yeah.
amazing."
Yeah.
It's kind of like an all or nothing kind of thing.
Yeah.
I only drink Pinots that Paul's recommended. So, there's that
Yeah,
too.
right.
Bound to
Right.
agree.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. Paul, what do people
Wait,
misunderstand?
why does
What?
Paul get to go first? Always. This is now like the
Right.
fourth
No, that's
question
not.
in a row.
Is
Really?
it? I started with you. on
Holiday
that.
movie, you
Wow,
started with him.
easy.
Sonoma
Well-
Piano, you started with him. Like,
Wait a
are we
minute. Let
just
me
going
take notes.
through?
Hold on.
Hold
Let
on.
me take
I-
notes.
I'm just saying.
Did that work in her personality type? We weren't expecting that, were we?
No, I wouldn't expect
You should have been. You clearly.
Here, I've got that.
if you'd gotten to my enneagram, you
I'm
would
not-
have.
The reason I was going to start with you on the next one, but the reason I'm starting with Paul because he
Fine.
brought it up earlier.
All right.
But
fine.
now, because
No,
Oh,
go
no.
ahead.
No,
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 We're
the
going to sit here till
assertive-
you go, Grace.
the
I'm sorry.
assertive part of Grace, she's going to go first.
That's I think Flip would say that's the only part of Grace. But yes, go
the
ahead.
assertive part of Grace. So, what do people misunderstand about you the most? That you're
How-
assertive?
How assertive I am. No. Perfect. What do
I
they
don't have a
misunderstand?
hair trigger temper.
I don't really, but it's getting close to my dinner time. I'm going to blame that. I don't know. I think that's a hard question about
I
myself
should have went
because
with Paul first.
I
I'm
think-
going to say, she made this big thing about, I'm going to go first. I didn't go first. What do you think? I have no answer
I
for
have
this.
no idea.
I wasn't looking at the questions. I just felt
okay.
slighted. I'm sorry. I stood up for myself in my slightedness.
I think
Anyway, I think I don't know that people misunderstand me much because I think who I am is who I am. I think that I once had a friend tell me, Grace, I can't tell if you're drunk or sober. You're the same either way. So I don't know what people misunderstand really. I think I'd be
Okay.
pretty quick to correct that. I don't know.
The correct answer is nothing.
That is right. Nothing.
No one misunderstands me because I make sure they understand exactly.
I'm
where
very
coming
clear.
from.
I'm very right.
I'm very
right.
clear where I'm coming from. Right. All right,
In
Paul.
bullet
What,
point form.
right. What do people misunderstand about you?
that I'm not angry.
Who thinks you're angry?
I've had it misinterpreted. Even when I used to run the coffee shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my wife's a bit more stern than I am, but people were afraid of me for some reason.
Is it because so sometimes people think introverts
Mm-hmm.
again because they don't like to extrovert. Sometimes that comes off, I think especially in men, as arrogance.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily that you're arrogant, it's just like you're just trying to get out of this as fast as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
sometimes
It's been misinterpreted that I'm angry or mad about a situation that I'm not.
I've
And
never
I've always been confused by that, and I've tried to make different ways to do it. Obviously, a lot of times I'm in charge of people, right? So that's kind of important.
you have to
that
be
they don't
direct, right?
Think but that they also don't think I'm just angry all the time at them for some reason. So I've had to try and, but I'm not one to try and coddle things either, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how does this make you feel before I say it? And can I give you a hug before I say something more constructive about how you've been screwing everything up? But it's a difficult, and I don't know if it's a facial expression thing or that, as you say, Grace, that I'm not like emoting enough or something, but it's that emotion or feeling that I've got back from people sometimes makes me take a step back. I'm like, what do you mean? You think I'm mad? I wasn't mad at all.
Mm-hmm.
I have told people that softening statements, like I've joked about things I've had to Dexter, like from the TV show that I had to like learn that humans do. Yeah, using softening statements is definitely something I've had to Dexter because I think, again, socially as a woman, you're not supposed to be that direct. And I'm like, oh, I thought you wanted my opinion. Isn't that what you asked me? I forgot that I was supposed to be like small and use softening statements and defer to everybody else. I forgot that I was supposed to do that.
I think the whole world has to do that nowadays, which is great.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I don't know. Softening statements, not my skill. So maybe if you use some more softening statements when working with people. I just think I've never gotten that, but
It just seems a bit contrived when you use softening statements.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing. You always want to be authentic, right?
Yeah,
and so that's why I joke that it's like Dexter, that it's something I had to like learn. Oh, so that's how human beings talk to each other, like that. Got it. Okay. Don't just tell people shit. They don't like that. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's very similar to yours, Paul. I think uh, in my daily life, in work life, and doing a podcast and everything, I think I play an extrovert during the day,
Mhm.
and I oftentimes come across as being an extrovert. But then when people are around me, they realize that I'm an introvert. And
Mhm.
the thing is that it sometimes comes off of me being aloof or distant
Right.
or angry or grumpy. And even to some people with like in my wife's family or my family or whatever. And I'm really not that way. And I'm, I'm not typically angry like that, but I think just being an introvert, there's times like I can be in a meeting and I won't say anything for the entire meeting. I'm just soaking up what everyone's saying.
Sitting there
And
squeezing
then
on the ball.
that little thing just saved your life.
The eyes are popping out.
Chunk it. Uh, so no, then I'll say something, but yeah, it's but I'm not, I think it's just my introversion that
Yeah.
and I'm like you, Paul. Is like I don't know about softening statements. I mean, I can offer platitudes or soften a conversation before we go in and talk about challenging things. But I think for me, it's small talk that sucks my soul out through
Yeah.
my nose. It just you go places. Hey, it's the weather.
So that's when you want to
let's
push
not
that
do
button and you up to
Listen,
this enterprise.
yeah, I'm like, let's
that's
not do this, please don't. Let's
that's
not do
that's
this
a good
small talk.
that's a good sign of an extrovert versus an introvert, because the extrovert, it's not small talk. They really are interested, not necessarily in the weather, but like where you're from or why you're wearing that or what are you here for? Why are you like all that kind of like mundane stuff? An extrovert really, it isn't just platitudes, right? They really are interested in those things. Like
Yeah.
I'm super awkward in that small talk area too. I don't know
Yeah,
what to
it's
say.
I don't know.
That's the
And
hardest part.
it's not that I
Yeah.
won't, I'll meet people
Of
that I've
course.
never met, and of course we'll talk about it, and I'm polite about it. But it just isn't. I would much rather know a lot more about them than sit to talk about the weather or just topical things.
You're
I
not a,
want to know what makes them tick, and their challenges they've been through, and or the successes they've had, or whatever it might
Mhm.
be. I find that incredibly intriguing and totally into that. To really understanding who they are as a person. But that's my personality type, being
you're
an
you're an
IST.
but you're an introvert, not a sociopath, right? Like
Yeah, right.
there's a
Small
difference.
difference.
Right. So I mean,
Right.
like you do
I'm
want to
so
have
close to being a high functioning
Aren't we all,
sociopath.
really?
right.
Yeah.
You do want connection with people. That's just not where you want it.
Sometimes. The older
Some
I
people.
get, the more get off my lawn I
He's
get.
salty.
I think that's
Get
true of
salty.
everybody, though.
Yeah. Now I just don't have patience for the nonsense. It's like it's nothing against younger generations, but it's kind of like I learned this when I was 8, and now we're having to all run around and pretend that we didn't know what a wind chill meant. So you have to change the app and put, it feels like, yeah, I get it. It's a wind chill. All right. Don't
Yeah.
put, it feels like, I get it.
You know what's
so,
do you ever see that Seinfeld comedians in cars with
Yes.
coffee?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
What's interesting about that is that he only likes comedians.
Right.
Mhm.
And he doesn't really want to have a conversation with anyone if they're not comedians or talking about comedy.
Right.
And I think as we get older, we all kind of evolve. We've got our little realm, right?
Mhm.
That if you're in my realm, then we're all buddies, even if I don't even know you. Like me with racing, right? Passion of
Yeah, right.
racing, and I meet people who listen to the podcast and they come out to the races, and there's Melton there with his wife at the
Yeah,
banner,
that's awesome.
and all kinds of people. There's already that commonality that
Mhm.
you already just engage, and it's not about they don't want to know who this person is. It's that if you don't have that commonality or that interest, automatically when you get to where we are nowadays, and rather than when you're at school and everyone's all over the place, right?
Yeah,
and
right,
you
right.
find your way. But now you've got this little spot, and maybe it feels a bit mundane because they're like, well, I only like talking about racing. Well, we don't, right? Me and Great, we talk about food, we talk about this. You got your little
Yeah.
brackets, your little circles. But it's just an interesting thing as you evolve that and you gravitate towards those people, and you just stay in your box to a degree.
Yeah. Let's see. Next question. A little challenge for you. I hope neither of you Googled it, but in California, which grape variety is the most planted?
Oh, it's probably like Chardonnay.
What do you say, Paul?
Probably Chardonnay, Cabernet, I would say. Pinot, actually. Now
Yeah,
think
probably.
about it. That's always a big one. Zinfandel was always big too. But it could be Chardonnay. It could not be
It's
because
Chardonnay.
I don't pay attention to Chardonnay.
I don't
at all,
either.
so-
See, I knew it had to be.
It is
Chardonnay is
Chardonnay.
gross.
Yeah, which is sad, but yeah. What? How do they rank down? Up and down?
I don't have that.
I was gonna
said
say-
Chardonnay.
Actually, one of the reasons why we went to Pantone, not only was it your recommendation, but that was actually one of the only Chardonnays that I've actually been like, oh, I'd get this again.
Ah,
Mm.
It was good.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm
Too
really
o-
not a white wine drinker. Really not a
Yeah,
Chardonnay
no,
drinker.
there's always a good wine in any genre, right? Where you go, wow, this is really good. If everything, I'm sure there's fantastic Chardonnays. They're just a little oaky and whatever,
Yeah.
buttery and blah blah blah. But not to demean everyone that loves Chardonnay. So, my apologies. I'm going to soften that statement.
Don't have your opinions. It's okay.
Yeah,
It's not my go-to wine, but there are certain meals that it pairs actually really well.
no,
with.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's just
And I'll have it, but
yeah. We
it's
more
not
go
my
Sauvignon
go-to.
Blanc and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
rather than a Chardonnay is a little strong.
right.
Overwhelming.
I reckon you go
I know,
Fumé Blanc.
overwhelming, but yeah.
You don't go Fumé Blanc, real dry. No. Grace,
Well, everything's dry.
what would be the title of a book about you?
I've never thought about this question before.
A book about Grace, what would be the title of it?
Well, apparently, according to this podcast, it would be aggressive opinions.
Yeah. Super. Whoa, super. aggressive.
God,
Insightful.
lady.
What about insightful, Grace?
Occasionally, right?
Occasionally.
That's good. Occasionally, insightful,
Occasion-
I think, would work.
I think that would be good.
I-
Entertaining.
I would think
the whole
I
statement was
see,
created around you.
I see lovely redoubtable.
Oh, There
See,
you go.
lovely redoubtable.
won.
I think
There
that
you
works. Paul, what about you?
It would probably be called chasing everything.
Mhm.
I'm always chasing something. Ever since I was a kid, I was chasing something. I was
Yeah.
chasing being this or chasing being that, and always chasing to be the next best version of that. And as my path where I'm going, I still chasing being bigger and better and more successful in that. So
Right.
there's always been a drive of passion. So I guess I'd with that.
Trying to find the best biryani. My next, my next
Yes.
phase.
Running around Calcutta. Where is it?
Where is
No,
it?
that's not it. Yeah.
See, that's
No.
good. See, Grace is like, insightful, love over there. Paul's chasing. I maybe I'm. I had my book title as "My Meteoric Rise to Mediocrity."
That's not true.
It's kind of my
It's
life.
funny. Well, I don't know.
That's it. I think that's it. Let's see.
Podcast Mega King.
Yeah, not. Paul, which
Yes.
wine do you think is the most versatile for all occasions?
Red table wine. No, Cabernet, I would say. Cabernet.
That's what I said. Grace, what do you think?
I would have said an Oregon Pinot.
See, Grace has got my back on the Oregon Pinot.
Oh,
But
no,
that's
I
the thing.
agree.
That's the thing. Yeah, Pinot can be very close to a Cabernet.
Yeah, it
in
can.
its-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think if you're somewhere and somebody got steak, somebody got fish, somebody
Yeah,
else is
yeah.
a vegetarian, right? Like a Pinot,
Mhm.
but an Oregon Pinot, I feel kind of everybody will be happy.
Right. Right.
Except me, apparently.
Well, yeah, because
No,
you're
would
a
I
big
pick you with
Merlot
love?
fan, Paul. So I know.
I'm not going to drink the Merlot,
Her-
man.
Yeah, he's a big port fan. Let's see. All right. So, Grace, you and I have to answer this first. So,
Okay.
Paul, being the chef that he is,
Oh,
hosting a dinner for the TPF staff.
okay.
He'll be serving cheese curds for the app, but then he mixes it up, and in Paul fashion, he'll be serving chicken vindaloo for the main course.
Okay.
What would you and I expect? And then we'll have Paul tell us actually what he would serve. But what would you and I expect on the table for wine? What goes with the ghost chili, right? In the vindaloo. So what would you expect from Paul with the cheese curds?
Cheese curds.
Cheese
I know. I tried to throw random food at you
That's
to make
pretty
it hard
random.
for Paul to figure out what he'd pair with that, and to try to make it hard for Grace and I to think.
All
God,
right,
what
so
would
are they-
Paul serve?
Are they two different beverages? I assume I don't have to like pick one beverage that covers both.
It's wine. No, well, if you think there's a wine that Paul would cover both with,
I see. Actually, the thing is that with something that's spicy, I wouldn't drink wine because the alcohol is just going to make it like it's going to blow out your palate. It's going to be so spicy, you're not going to taste any of it. That's why Indian food, you drink like a mango a lassi of some sort, right? It's yogurt. It's calming. I wouldn't drink alcohol. Of any
but
sort.
but Paul is
Well,
a
that's
he's,
ridiculous.
he's a rule breaker.
Not the not wine thing, but no alcohol.
Not alcohol. That's ridiculous.
I
What's
don't-
wrong
I'm
with
just-
you?
I mean, you could do a beer maybe, but I just wouldn't do a wine. I think
Well,
a
this
wine
is Paul's
would be-
house. He's serving wine. If it was you
I don't have
serving
to
us,
drink it.
you could give us yogurt or whatever the heck that was. But it's Paul's house and
Whatever it
Paul's
is.
serving wine. I don't. Yeah. I
Suddenly,
don't do
this has
curry.
become
You
like
should know
cheese, wine, and Indian food podcast. I don't
that. No,
know.
well, that's because Paul. He's British. You're required by law to love a naan. I don't know why. It's British. It's a British thing.
It's delicious.
It's beyond me.
It is delicious. I'll give you
So
that.
he's going to serve wine with cheese curds, and he's picked one, and he's going to serve wine with a chicken vindaloo. What do you
Okay.
think Paul would pick?
I think again with the cheese curds, I would just stick with a Pinot. I think that it's a red. It would go with cheese. I think that would be fine. And again, for anything that's spicy, Indian food especially, I don't think I'd put a wine with it. I'd either do lassi.
He
of some
chooses
sort,
not to run.
or a beer. Maybe,
All right.
if you really want
Here's my
alcohol.
guess, Paul.
Okay.
For the curds, I would expect Paul would serve like a Chardonnay with fresh curds because they're creamy and all that, and that Chardonnay kind of cut through it. So I would think Paul would serve a Chardonnay with the curds and maybe a Riesling or Prosecco if they're fried. Right? That's what I would think. And for the chicken, because of the spicy food is really hard to pair wine with. I would think that because it's hot and spicy, I think Paul would serve a chilled rosé or a very light red. That's my
Okay.
guess.
So
Paul,
I might as well.
what would
just-
you really serve?
So we're just going
I'm
to be
with
drinking
Grace.
water.
I wouldn't serve wine at all. But that would be the last thing in my list to serve. Quite
Well, but the
honestly.
challenge here is that you got to serve a wine.
Get it? I get it. I
I refuse to accept the premise of this.
Well, don't Kobayashi Maru this thing.
Oh, you're wrong,
refuse.
sir. This is an
Yeah.
outrage and an abomination. There is no right answer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think a little rosé.
Could you choke down a
Echo.
chilled
Yeah.
rosé with the chicken?
Yes, if I had to,
Yes.
but there'd be millions of other drinks ahead of that.
well, sure.
But you wouldn't want to eat any more food. I mean, I think
Yeah,
that's
it's-
it's about the
that's-
vindaloo. I want to eat all of that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have something that's literally has no effect. You
Right.
know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like drinking water. So an ice wine or something. I don't know. Something.
So Paul would come out with a vase of water and say, "Here, freshly squeezed water."
yeah,
Just
right,
chill.
right.
Slightly
Yeah,
chill.
I mean,
From my
yeah, I'm with
tap.
Grace. I mean, yes, you could go with like a rosé or something, or you could even have a Cabernet honestly with cheese curds. It'll be fine. But with the Vindaloo, I just don't know how you could drink
Yeah,
wine
I
at
thought
all.
I'd throw you a curveball being the
That is,
curry-
that is a curveball.
It
I,
is.
He's
I
a
don't
curry
have the
genius.
answer. I would tell
Yeah.
everyone to leave because I'm out of drinks.
Everyone stop eating the Vindaloo.
Okay,
Stop
no, I'm
eating
taking
the Vindaloo. I've served wine. It's an anathema. Everyone run.
I'm filling my pockets with the vindaloo and going somewhere else.
There
right?
you go.
Like,
Right.
There's a reason Vorsteiner was invented, right? It's like
Yeah.
that's the perfect pairing with a Indian food. Yeah,
Well, the Indians got it right.
yeah they did.
Yeah, so,
That's
all
why
right,
their beers are like the
Grace,
same.
if you had to eat one kind of food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I feel so swayed by this. I will say they do tell you that with wine is you should eat whatever is in that region that the other people eat, right? Because they go together, right? So like in Italy, drink an Italian wine from that area, it'll
Right.
go together.
Yeah,
It's what
like-
they drink, right?
Like a Chianti.
Yeah,
Right.
like those fine
Exactly.
Indian wines.
Yeah, right. That's whatever
Mm-hmm.
those are. Uh,
Barles and James wine cooler.
A White Claw.
All right. If I can only eat one food.
Just one
wow.
food.
That's a tough. That's a tall. That's maybe
Now,
worse
is this
than
a
cheese.
food product or a food type?
A food type.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
You know, I'd like to again specify, just like always, I have not read the questions ahead of time. So I'm sorry that it's taken me a moment to come up with the one food I can eat for the rest of my life, one category of food that I can eat for the rest of my life. Give me a moment. I mean,
You want me to go first?
all right. Yeah. If you got an answer, go ahead.
Oh, totally. It's easy. Italian.
Hmm.
Italian. I just love Italian.
Northern or southern? Let's be
Either.
more-
I
Okay.
I tend
of
to
it.
like northern a little more, but either, any Italian.
Hmm.
Yeah. Paul.
Very nice. Me? I'm gonna. I
Curry.
was split. No,
Oh,
no, not curry at all. Not fish and chips. Not haggis. I
none of
would
those.
get-
None of those stereotypes from the
Did you-
UK.
Did you say haggis? Nobody
did.
should eat. Nobody should eat haggis.
The only way you
ever.
can. The
Certainly
only way
not
you
every
can
day.
manage haggis is you got to pour the scotch over it.
You need
Got
the
to.
liquor on
Eat
top.
it
Got
on
to.
You need a
top,
lot
all
of liquor.
Oh,
Got to. Yeah,
gosh.
that's the only way you can choke it down.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's
Take
okay.
it from a couple Scots. That's how you do it.
You got to have the liquor, and it's got to be good. I've had good haggis.
Yeah.
So I would go, and it was
I
tough for
think
me. I
so.
still can't quite figure it out, but it'd be either Mediterranean or Spanish.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Spanish, I think I love Spanish style
Mhm.
food. There's so many different degrees. Obviously, last time we ate, Todd, was at a tapas
Yeah.
restaurant. I
Right.
love that way of eating food.
Yeah.
Small plates, try all different types of things. I'd
Mhm.
love that. But
Yeah.
then the Mediterranean food is so fresh
Yeah.
and creative, and you know,
Mhm.
from the sea or from the hills, and it goes well with every single wine you could probably
Yeah,
think
lots of
of,
wines.
right?
Mhm.
So if I had to choose, I'd probably say Mediterranean just for my own health, but I do love some Spanish stuff. That's pretty awesome.
That's
I don't
good.
think we're about our health here on this show anymore.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Nothing we've discussed here has really involved lots of fruits and vegetables. So,
That's true.
Right.
and
I would
know-
broccoli.
I don't know if it is. Feels very strange to say this, and I'm sure if Flip was in earshot and could hear this, he would have already yelled this answer as if I'm pretending this isn't my answer. It really would be Indian food. I really think that's.
Would
I
it?
feel like now we've gone through like
Yeah.
87 questions. And that feels very trite, but
Yeah.
it really is my favorite. So
Right, yeah, but it's your favorite. But he's saying you'd have to eat it every day.
I think I could really eat vegetable biryani every day for the rest of my life. Some chicken tikka
Wow.
masala, delicious. The
See,
desserts are
the
delicious. I'd be
reason
in.
I can't do, well, I could do Indian food as long as it's not curry. And
well, there's lots
yeah.
of other things.
I totally could do that, but yeah, as long as it's not curry. And there's a reason for that, because when I was in college, there were two guys that were suite mates with us and roommates, and they were from India. Really delightful guys, great guys, but they had hot plates in their room,
Oh,
and so
jeez.
every night, now get this,
Curry.
every night, a overwhelming smell of curry was in my room.
Okay.
Every
Now
single
it
night
makes sense.
That makes
I can-
for an
sense.
entire
I never heard that
year.
story. I can
An entire
definitely
year.
understand that.
Yeah, and it was an entire year. It got so bad by the time I got out of that year, I could not stomach it. I could not smell it. I don't want to. No, can't do
Gotcha.
it.
So it's
Okay.
it's kind
That
of like
does
how
make sense.
lots of people have like that one alcohol that they got so sick on they can't drink it anymore.
Yeah,
right?
usually tequila. Yes.
Goldschlager for me.
I was gonna say
Ooh.
Jägermeister. That's what did me in.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all good ones. Yeah, those are all good.
I
ones.
like Jägermeister. It doesn't like me. I try to stay away from it.
Right. Let's see. Okay. Another little quiz. Who
Okay.
founded cheese making in England? Paul, I'm going to throw that to you. I'm sorry, Grace. I'm going to go to Paul. He's English. She's trumped you.
Well, I don't think it was the English,
You're right.
right? So I think it was invaders, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't the Vikings. Who did it.
No.
So you got to look at obviously we're just kind of talking your Italian, your Mediterranean, Greek, all that kind of stuff. There was a lot of food that began there, and I think it migrated over to England at that point. So somewhere around the Italy, Greece kind of area, I would think. Yeah.
Right. Apart from roads and education, what have the Romans really done for us? It was the Romans.
Yeah.
correct.
Romans.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there
Did
you
a
go.
lot of stuff, man.
Grace,
They did a lot of stuff.
who? Let me get this right. Grace, who invented the cheesecake?
Ooh.
That seems like a very American thing.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
Right. Well, because somebody once explained to me like with television, but it's the same thing. Like the British come up with something, the Americans take it and bastardize it, and then the Australians take it and bastardize it even more. So, and that seems like somebody's like, geez, this is delicious. How could we ruin it? Cheesecake. I don't know. Somebody in Miami invented it. I have no idea.
Someone in Miami.
I was trying to go
Someone
with
in Miami.
The Cuban cream cheese connection.
there are people that live
Pretty
in
obvious.
Miami that are not Cuban.
Where are they?
In Miami?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not Cubans that live there.
Okay.
I mean,
Mrs.
I don't know.
Haberdash from 45th Street.
That's correct. My dear sir, I'd love a slice of your New York cheesecake. I don't know. I just think.
Oi.
Where the hell does
That's
cheesecake
called New
come
York
from?
cheesecake, right? Not just cheesecake.
New York cheesecake, right.
Yeah,
It's a very
right.
specific kind of cheesecake.
Yeah,
Well, that would be the Greece.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I
I
created
guess.
that in ancient Greece.
Yeah. Well,
let's
they
see.
invent all those little pastries.
Oh,
with cheese
so
and
the
stuff.
Romans invented cheese, and then the Greeks made cheesecake.
Cake. Let
out
them
of
eat
it.
cake. Yeah.
Well,
That
but
was the
then they
French.
also did baklava, which is just awesome.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that's not cheese based. But
No,
yeah,
it's not, but it's
and
awesome.
falafel, also awesome.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, I think every culture has something that I'd be like, "Ooh, that's
Ooh,
delicious."
it is good. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Well, Grace, I'm going to come right back at you then,
All
since
right.
you failed the cheesecake. This is a redemption. How many points are you going to wager on this question? No, it is this. Grace,
Yes,
you've
Todd.
chosen to serve your guests barbecue.
Okay,
What wine do you serve with it?
with barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have served a beer with barbecue.
Why do you say like a lamb chop or something? That
But
would be-
this isn't the beer and cheese episode. It's the
Ah,
wine
it's
and cheese
food,
episode.
Food and wine is
Yeah,
beer, wine.
I don't know.
No, it's got to be wine.
We
What,
love- we like
see,
all
I'm trying to
things.
throw you guys curveballs. What wine would you serve with barbecue? If I had to pick one,
I think you need maybe a white wine, maybe like a
I
Riesling.
picked a Riesling. Exactly,
Yeah, I
Grace.
think a
That's
Riesling
exactly
is what I
chose.
would go with.
Yeah,
To balance the barbecue sauce.
yeah, the
but
sweetness of
Yeah.
the barbecue. Yeah, that's
Riesling.
exactly what I picked.
Well, look
Grace.
at that. I passed. I should have wagered all my points,
I know.
Was that
You and
the-
I totally hooked up on that.
but I would have really gone with a beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I would
sure,
have
of
gone the
course.
opposite. I would have gone full into the deal. I mean, not a sweet wine by any means,
Yeah.
but
No,
a
right.
dry red or something. Just to
Yeah,
you're going in with the red meat, you just go full in
All
and get it
red.
all over
Yeah,
your
right.
face.
yeah,
you know?
you could. Well, Paul, you've chosen chocolate for dessert. What wine do you serve with the chocolate?
Oh, you got to have. What kind of chocolate?
It could be any kind of chocolate.
Wrong.
Wrong. Milk chocolate. Hershey's, Pennsylvania. Right in Grace's backyard.
With your
Belgian
Velveeta.
chocolate. Belgian chocolate.
Yeah, well, you got to go with port of some
Port.
kind.
Yeah,
And
that's
there's
what I
it depends. There's white port and there's red port and
Yeah.
then there's blue port, macadamia nuts. Yeah. So I love when I first tried port in Sonoma. I was like, what the hell is this crap? You know, I didn't get it, but
right.
really good port goes with dessert
Mhm.
phenomenally well.
Right.
Mm.
So Paul loves sushi, and you've made him some, Grace. You've made him some
Okay.
sushi. What wine do you serve his sushi with?
Who's? I mean, again, I would have served it with sake. Who's serving?
Gotta
sake
serve
is wine.
Is it? Well, then you go. You get
Yeah.
sake.
Oh well,
Yeah.
okay, all
I
right.
guess it's,
Sake.
uh,
I would
Sake is
pick. I
wine.
would pick a rosé
you go.
for Paul in the sushi.
Yeah, I wouldn't go with that. Too conflicting.
Yeah.
I would go with with a
Paul'd
dry
go
white
with
or
another cab.
sake. No cap.
He'd switch tables. He's somewhere else.
Paul again
Pick
with
up
the
the
water
table
ball.
and go. You can't
Especially
make
if it's like a hibachi table. That would be the best one to watch you try to flip, right?
But if I had to serve wine and it wasn't sake, which is the obvious choice, but if I had to serve a wine, I think I would try a rosé with him
Hmm.
on that one. And he would throw it in my face and say, "You, sir, are not a very good wine steward."
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, there's so many different types of sushi. It probably could go with some
Yeah,
things,
yeah, it might.
like a lobster
A
sushi or
lobster
something like that.
sushi, yeah,
Probably. Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay, Grace, if you had to write a book tomorrow, what would it be about?
Probably this pod. 'Cause we've covered everything.
We have.
Every chapter covered.
How to get off a podcast when you really don't know how.
That's every podcast. No, I don't know. What would I write a book of? I don't know.
Paul, how about you?
I don't know.
I would write a book about effort and reward.
I think you would plagiarize The Art of War and spend
Yes.
4 chapters just regurgitating The Art of War and team that up with a brief conversation you had with Ross Braun and call it a book on
Exactly.
Ross.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Perfect.
as you were passing in the corridor.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey,
Ross, what do you
Ross.
think about this?
What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Write that down. Make a
What
book
would you
about
eat with
that.
your sushi? Yeah.
Yeah. Would you serve port with your chocolate, Ross? Okay, great.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Just, I
Yeah.
mean, just in the, and it's, I don't want to say kids these days, but it's not kids these days because I've met several kids in motorsports that understand how much effort it takes to achieve something unique and successful in a difficult world, you know, a different avenue that you're going. Racing is a very difficult avenue to go down, and it doesn't take just talent. It takes talent and drive and persistence and beating down doors because it costs money and you don't have the money. So and I've seen several succeed at it. Some fail, but fail because they didn't understand how much effort is going to get you the reward. So
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
If I was going to write about, I don't know, maybe the evolution of the guitar player, maybe would be
Ooh.
fun to research.
Huh?
Something about music, being a guitar player, I think would be good. I could write something about Maston Gregory, who I think is an underrated driver in Formula One and sports cars. I think he was he's a fellow Kansas City boy, born and raised there.
Right. How did the guy from Kansas City end up there? That's the
I know,
crazy-
it's amazing, isn't it? And or the Cold War. I lived through that, so I've always been mesmerized by all the happenings and goings-ons around
Maybe-
the Cold War.
Maybe it would be just how to just let go and be you.
Like
that's what I go for.
like a self-help book.
I know, but that sounds like a I don't know, such a 90s trope. But anyway, I just think just trying to be. I think as at this age, I think being comfortable in your skin is something we all struggle with when you're in your 20s, and then as you get to your 40s, you're like, screw it, you don't like me, I don't
Well, this is
care, right?
pretty much- This is pretty much what it is.
This
So,
is it. So
this is fully baked.
I can't
So, like-
change it.
right. So I think, how do you get to that stage earlier, or how do you just and stop trying to be what society wants you to be, or how to just
Yeah.
be you in
Yeah,
that.
raising kids, that's a battle every day you try to,
Right.
because that
For sure.
causes so many issues, right?
Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
yes.
If you're not comfortable in yourself and you're just trying to be something that you think everyone else wants you to be, it's oof,
Yeah.
nowadays more
tough.
than any ever, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Paul,
everyone's telling you how to be.
for sure. Paul, what's your favorite book?
Whoa. I like biographies. I don't know if I can.
Oh, I do
So,
like biography.
So it'd be a biography of some kind. I really like the Jackie Stewart book, but in general, I'm not. I really like the Damon Hill book. Actually, I thought that was a really great, diverse book, not just about being a Formula One driver, but dealing with all kinds of different circumstances in his life.
Right.
But I generally like reading biographies because I like to learn how people ended up where they are, because it intrigues me to no end. As we're trying to
Right.
figure out where we want to be, or how to get there. It's like, how did this even happen?
Yeah,
and
right.
and you'd never really know from surface stuff. So when you get into a deep, truthful book, it really blows your mind how all kinds of different people come from all different places, like Maston Gregory, for instance, or
Yeah.
Jackie Stewart with his dyslexia, or Damon Hill, and just many walks of life and how they ended up there. It doesn't have to be a racing, but generally biographies of where I divert my
that's cool.
attention to. Yeah.
Grace, how about you? Your favorite book?
I mean, I also like biographies, but I'm a sociologist, so that's always like you're saying, like who people are, how they got here, that kind of thing is always really kind of interesting. I really like the Phantom Toll Booth when I was a kid. That's one of my favorites. I don't know. That's not really what you're looking for there, but that's what I got.
It's okay.
I was like, when was the last time somebody asked you what it was like? This is like if you could only eat one food, if you could only read one book for the rest of your life, what would it be? I don't know. I don't know, but yeah, I think it would be some human interest kind of biography, something interesting, and maybe if it's the only book I get to read, maybe something really long.
Think how adult we sound now. Oh, I have biographies I like to do.
I
It's
always-
like so boring, right? When you think about it, I mean, when you were a kid, you were reading
guess-
fantasy like Lord of the Rings and all that stuff was always Lord of the Rings.
But I
was great.
always, it is, but it's still
Oh, it's
about
a fabulous book.
Yeah, I don't know. I always liked, like I love Jules Verne. I think the idea of like exploration and learning and finding things out, I think that just carries into a biography. I don't think that's just, we're
Right.
old people now, so we're interested in what other old people are doing.
right.
What's that old person doing over there?
Yeah,
What's that
right.
old
Let's
person?
go have a look.
I think it's just,
Shade. Let's see them.
yeah.
My favorite, probably Don Quixote. That's my favorite book. Yeah, absolutely love that book. Grace, what's your favorite? No, I already asked you what your favorite book. What's one lesson your job has taught you that you think everyone should learn at some point in their life?
Ooh. How to do basic math? Does that
That's a good
really
one.
helpful. Yeah.
That's a good one.
I don't know. I mean,
There's
How
a
many people are
solution
supposed
for
to show up
that.
to this meeting? 5?
I don't know. You'd be
Three, sir.
amazed, but I don't. For my job, I think actually how to be a clear communicator. I think because we joked earlier about what do I do for a living. One of my primary roles is writing questions. So somebody will come to me with a topic and they'll go, "We want to know how many dental appointments somebody's had," and you think, "Oh, how hard could that be?" Right? Really hard, right? So that's all about communication. That's all about figuring out how Todd might interpret that question versus somebody from another country might, because
Yeah,
most
right.
people will just say twice because that's what you're supposed to say, twice a year. But if you really make people think about it, they really don't go twice a year. So I think how to be an effective, that also sounds very cheesy, but I think how to be an effective communicator, because that is fundamental to writing surveys.
Yeah, that's good. Paul, what about you?
Ooh. I still feel like I'm learning so much. I'm not sure I could.
Sure.
You
You haven't learned
Uh,
everything? I don't know.
is that
You haven't figured
cheesy?
it out yet?
Yeah, I figured it all out. God, I don't know. It's no, I actually don't have an answer to this one. That's
Okay.
a tough one.
You want me to share my answer?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
sure.
Okay,
Maybe I'll
share
come
my
up with.
answer.
I'll fake something up. in a
Fake
minute.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I think after all these circles around the sun, I think that your job is to make everyone you work for and everyone who works for you as successful as they possibly can be.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Exactly. Yeah. I always think, in your formative young years anyway, you are trying to become successful and achieve things. And, and some people, look at Formula One drivers and what they're willing to do and not do. And even to the point of being aggressive on track or multi-21 or those kind of things. But it's what you do to achieve that personal success.
Mm-hmm.
But in hindsight, looking back, I think it's much more fulfilling to me personally to do whatever I can to make whoever's working for or who I work for as successful as possible, because it's a little bit of that rising tide, sort of theory.
All boats, yeah.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like that to me, certainly in the company I'm with now, is what I try to do. Because I think in the end game, if the people you were working for are outrageously successful with your help and doing things, and the people that work for you are very successful in achieving what not only their job tasks are or whatever it might be, but I think in the end that you're sandwiched by people that are successful at what they're doing. And I think it's good to be around people that achieve and are successful at what they're doing, and you're helping in that effort. And I just think it is sort of that rising tide theory.
Yeah, so bouncing on that, that is true, and that's kind of what we do now. I think when we're more comfortable in the position we're in, right? When we're younger, we're trying to be the
That's
people
right.
that stick our head
That's
above
right.
everybody and get noticed, and I want the promotion or I want this or that.
Yeah, that's right.
Like within the race team, it's not what I do that wins the race,
Right.
right? It's what everyone else is doing that helps us be successful. So my job is to give everyone what they need, hopefully,
Right.
to be as good as they can be. So combined, everyone is successful. But say I individually, I can't make the car win a race, but as a whole, I can help support everybody else and get them what they need, and whether it be information or equipment or this or that or organizational, that they can be the best they can be, and that itself becomes the success, right?
Right. Yeah. And sometimes you do that, and sometimes you fall down and you didn't do the best job of trying to help someone be successful, and those are hard lessons, and you got to up your game. But in other cases, sometimes you've done a lot trying to help someone but they're not executing, and that's always a tough situation that a business has to make decisions on, and that's always difficult. But yeah, I think maybe that's my life lesson. Grace, what will racing look like in 5 years?
Well, I'm sure Ross Brown will still think it's about an 8 or a 9.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll still just be some sort of a train. I think they'll just keep trying to make it not a whatever kind of train, and it'll just become a worse kind of train.
Wow.
I'll keep watching it. I didn't say I was going to stop watching it. There won't be permanent stewards.
Yes.
Bernie
will still be around.
Yeah, he's never going to die. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
He's always going to be there. And I don't know, 5 years, it'll look kind of the same, because that's not really that far out.
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to look the same. Hopefully they get rid of their mindset on DRS fixing every L, and eventually they're willing to experiment a little bit to go a little beyond that and rely on that. Although, we've heard anti-DRS for the leader now, which
correct, right?
As I said, honestly, if they did that, I actually probably would stop.
Yeah, I can't.
Because that would be the last for me.
And now
relation of sport versus entertainment.
Yeah, it turned into Mario Kart.
Yeah.
And now we found where this pod's first time, last time stands. Anti-DRS for the front runners.
Yeah. That it really would. It would kill everything. I mean,
that's a bridge too far.
Yeah, the DRS it's kind of like I put it out of my mind, not to completely be obsessed by the fact of how much I hate it and the idea of it, and that they can't fix it any other way.
Yeah.
And everyone's accepting of it, although it seems like everyone's kind of fallen into the place where they're accepting that it's there, but still the people didn't like it still haven't warmed up to liking it. And some people that automatically accepted it as an inevitability and I don't care have stayed. Everyone's kind of find their path and don't really change their mind. And that's why there hasn't been any big outrage to try and change it. Right? Everyone's kind of accepted that DRS is a part of Formula One from here to eternity. But I would still every year want to be looking at it and trying to find a way of taking away, because as we've spoken about many times, it's taken away a lot of sporting rivalries and races on track that we never saw appear, because DRS basically either neutered it or just made it so easy it was a pointless exercise.
Yeah, why go for it when I can just wait till the next straight and pass on?
And now it's become it's evolving to becoming a race to the DRS activation zone rather than a race to pass somebody.
I agree.
Sprinklers is what you're asking for, right?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm asking for.
Yep. All right. For me, I don't know, a dumpster fire. my answer? I don't know.
I don't
no,
know.
I kind of agree with that. I think it'll be more the same. But yeah, boy, they got to get the new regulations right and the engine regulations right,
Yeah.
and
Well,
not
the
monkey
engine rig
around
should
with
at
this
least
stuff.
make the engines sound a little bit more like
Yeah, it
racing
should.
engines again.
Yeah, it should. So anyway, well, that does it for this podcast. I know it wasn't about F1. I hope you enjoyed it. But on behalf of all of us, all three of us at TPF, we want to say thank you for another fantastic year, even though Paul beat Grace and I, me and Grace,
No,
in the fantasy
I
league.
beat Paul.
Oh,
first
did you
of
beat
all.
Paul? I thought
I
he
beat
recovered
Paul.
on the last race and beat us both.
No,
No.
Awesome.
I beat him by a position.
Oh, that's
Bring it down a notch.
awesome. Everyone,
I beat him.
Grace beat Paul. Awesome. There
It's
you
all
go.
to do with that one race where I didn't put any picks in because I completely
That's
forgot
it.
about it.
I hear you, Lewis Hamilton, and that you hit the magic button, but I don't
Yeah.
care.
It's
Yeah.
true. Very
I
true.
won, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like a technicality because I think we really ended up with like the same points or something, and it was just like we had one thing, some tiebreaker or something.
Right.
But yeah,
You
22
had two
and
people on your
23.
team rather than one, so you.
But it's really only
There was the flip factor, I think.
It's not too. Again, you guys remember the days when I was like, "Oh, Alonso's not in Formula One, and yet he's still in my fantasy team." So it's clearly,
Yeah,
clearly not me who's
Right.
the team principal.
Right.
I never remember. So
Right.
that
Oh,
is
that's funny.
that is all Flip who beat Paul this year. But yes,
Yeah. all right. Well,
Strolovic's
good for you.
adjustable junk.
Good
beat
for you.
Paul and
Well,
Todd.
and most importantly, though, we couldn't do this podcast without our patron supporters. And so I want to say a huge thank you to all of you. To the new listeners, we hope you stomach through this and enjoyed it. For all you legacy listeners
They
out
loved
there
it.
that have been
Yeah.
listening for
Hopefully
a long
we didn't
time.
lose like subscribers because of your abomination of wine and Indian food.
Yeah,
I'm hoping
right.
that didn't. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm
love
sure
them both.
everybody was listening to the podcast said, wine with Vindaloo? What? Are you joking? There was a reason to the madness. I was trying to challenge Paul and Grace, but
Wow. And we didn't accept it. We said,
I know
"Screw
you
your
revolted,
challenge."
as you should. That was wisely
Is this
done.
what you want?
So anyway, a huge thank you. And for those of you who've been listening for a long time, thanks so much for doing. Hope you appreciated this non-F1 that we kept threatening to do, a wine and cheese. We keep going through the winter, of course, in the winter season, as always. But the only break we normally take is around this time of year for the holidays. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks. We'll take next week off for the holidays. We'll be back in a couple of weeks where Grace and I might share some F1 New Year's resolutions. Maybe if we're motivated, that might be kind of fun to do.
We're not going to have Paul on for that. Those are always the most fun.
Well, I don't know. Paul, he's evasive. He's on the go. It's hard to know.
Wait, he's
Paul
Should
aloof.
be okay.
He's
Paul-
aggressive. He's angry.
He's angry. Yeah, look at his Enneagram,
Yep.
Yeah, right?
No, but Paul is welcome on every single podcast. I just don't want to,
Okay,
overplay
let's not-
my hand.
let's not
and he'll
get
get pissed
crazy.
off and
No,
angry because he's always looks mean. Have you seen him? He always looks
Again.
mad.
Why is it always one extreme or the other? There's something in between not having Paul on and always having Paul
Okay.
on, right? Something
Right.
in between is what the people
Well, I don't know
want.
what it could be, but there's something there.
Right.
It's a
so
surprise.
maybe Paul will join us, hopefully,
All right.
for New Year's resolutions. Would be a lot of fun. But
Although I
for
feel like
next week,
we've already tipped it with our DRS wishes,
it is
He'll be on it for
DRS.
sure.
We're deeper than that, Grace. Didn't we
Okay,
figure that
come
out?
on.
We're deeper than just
That's
DRS.
right. Paul
All right.
goes for the pass. He doesn't.
I
wait
don't
for
think
DRS.
I don't think my resolutions have changed since last year for this sport. So
May
that'll
not
be
have.
fun.
May
Well,
not.
we'll
have.
just replay the podcast then.
Yeah. But for
We get an
next
extra week off. Excellent.
Right. Hey, but for next week, I think I might dig into our Wayback Machine, into our catalog, and pull out a gem that most of you have never heard. And so I found something today that I was
Ghost
going
of
through the
Christmas
files.
past.
That
And
frightens me.
It's such a fun thing. So anyway, there will be something next week. It won't be current. It'll be from our legacy podcast, but hopefully you enjoy. But I know I speak on behalf of Paul and Grace when I say thank you so much for all of your support for all of these 17 years, 15 years podcasting, and this past year for listening. We're incredibly grateful. And I know I also speak on behalf of both of them by saying happy holidays and happy new year to all of you. We wish you the absolute best, and we look forward to coming back for the New Year's. And until that time, Paul, Grace, I could not do this without both of you. It is an absolute honor to have you both on the podcast, and I'm incredibly grateful for your time. And it's been wonderful, and I'm very grateful for my family for doing without me for at least a couple or 2 or 3 hours every week for 15 years. So that was very nice of them. So big thank you to my wife and daughter. So until next time, in 2 weeks, when we come back and do it all over again, this is Todd, aka Negative Camera, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.